laughed as my boss mocked my husband until he stood up and did something I'll never forget. Hey Reddit, honestly, I never thought I'd be writing this here. I've never really been one for posting my personal stuff on Reddit. In fact, I actually don't quite like it. But I really need some help on how to approach the situation, which is why I'm posting here. My name is Jane, and I'm a 35-year-old woman. My husband and I have been married for about 5 years, though we've been together since college. He wasn't exactly eager about marriage, and it took a lot of convincing on my part, which is why we've only been married for a relatively short time. My husband Tom is 34. Things have always been great between us, but lately, we've been going through a rough patch. Tom recently got promoted at work, which should have been a fantastic achievement. However, with the promotion came a massive increase in workload. His responsibilities doubled, and although the pay is incredible, it means he's been working far more hours than before. This shift has created a rift between us. Before Tom's promotion, everything was great between us. He's always been a romantic at heart, and he would do all those little things that make me feel loved. We had 2 kids, ages 5 and 4, and life was good. Tom made sure we had regular date nights and surprise gestures that helped keep our relationship strong. But like I said, after he got promoted, everything changed. His job became a lot more demanding, and though the pay was better, it meant he was working longer hours and dealing with a lot more stress. He tried to make up for it by spending all his free time with the kids, so they wouldn't feel his absence.
No.
While I appreciated that he was trying to be there for them, it meant that we hardly had any time for ourselves. Our date nights disappeared, and I felt increasingly lonely and neglected. It was like our once happy and connected relationship was slowly drifting apart. I knew he was working hard for us, but the lack of attention to our marriage was really starting to hurt. I decided I needed to talk to Tom about how I was feeling. I told him that his new job was affecting our relationship and that I was feeling lonely and neglected. To his credit, Tom listened and tried to reassure me. He promised that once he got more used to his new position, his workload would ease up, and things would get back to how they were before. He explained that the person who held the job before him had left a huge mess, and he was swamped trying to clean it up. I understood where he was coming from and tried to be patient. I knew he was under a lot of pressure, and I didn't want to add to his stress. But despite my best efforts to be understanding, the situation didn't really improve. On top of everything, Tom's busy schedule meant he was barely around to help out at home. Tasks like cooking, cleaning, and getting the kids ready for bed all fell on my shoulders. I was already juggling a lot with the kids, and without his help, it felt like everything was piling up. It was hard to manage it all on my own while trying to keep a positive attitude about his work situation. When my new boss came on board, things started to change. He was everything Tom wasn't at that moment. Smooth, charming, and incredibly attentive. At first it seemed harmless. He'd bring me lunch and coffee, and always had something nice to say about my clothes or how I looked. I noticed that whenever he complimented me, it made me feel special and valued in a way I hadn't felt in a while. Slowly, I began to change my own behavior to keep up with the attention he was giving me. I started dressing better and paying more attention to my makeup, hoping to impress him. I knew deep down that what I was doing was wrong. I was encouraging his advances, and I was fully aware that I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help it. The attention felt so good after feeling so neglected at home. Even though I was aware of how inappropriate this was, the compliments and gestures from my boss were a welcome distraction. It gave me a boost of confidence and made me feel noticed, something I had been missing for months. I knew I was making a mistake, but the emotional validation was hard to resist. I started staying late at work more often, especially on nights I knew my boss would be working late too. At first, I told myself it was just about getting extra tasks done, even though deep down, I knew it was more about being around him. We began spending more time together, chatting about things that were really personal. It felt like we were forming a connection that was more personal. One evening, while we were alone in the office, things took a turn. We had been flirting with each other for so long that we ended up crossing a line. It started with just touching and looking at each other for a bit too long. Before I knew it, we were doing it right there in the office. At the moment, it felt amazing and intense, but as soon as the excitement wore off, I was left with a sinking feeling of guilt and worry. I realized I had made a mess of things and that I had done the one thing I swore not to do. I felt awful after what happened with my boss. I was so overwhelmed with guilt that I took 3 days off work pretending to be sick. My husband noticed I was acting strange and asked if something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. How could I admit that I had cheated? I knew he'd never forgive me. I wanted to come clean, but I was terrified of how he'd react. So I stayed silent and avoided talking about it. When I finally went back to work, my boss took advantage of my guilt and confusion. He told me it wasn't my fault, that it was my husband's for being too busy. He made it seem like my husband's neglect was the reason I ended up in this mess. I should have seen through his manipulation, but I was desperate for someone to understand and make me feel better. So I ended up continuing the affair with my boss. It started with us secretly meeting, and then it quickly became a full-blown relationship. Even though I knew it was a huge mistake, I felt stuck and unable to break free. I was consumed with guilt, and there were so many times when I wanted to end the affair. But every time I tried to pull away, my boss would threaten to tell my husband everything. He knew exactly how to keep me trapped. He was dangling the destruction of my marriage over my head like a sword. I was terrified. No. Just the thought of my husband finding out made my stomach turn. I knew cheating was a deal breaker for him, and if he ever discovered what I had done, it would be the end of everything we had built together. Our marriage, our family, it would all be over. I couldn't bear the thought of losing him and breaking up our home, especially not because of a mistake I regretted more than anything. So I felt like I had no choice but to do whatever my boss wanted. It wasn't just the fear of my husband finding out. It was also the fear of what my life would look like if everything fell apart. I was scared, cornered, and felt completely powerless. My boss knew this and used it to his advantage to keep me under his control. Every time I thought about breaking free, I would remember his threats, and I would end up complying with his demands. I hated myself for being so weak, for letting this man manipulate me, but I felt stuck. The guilt and shame was weighing on me every single day, but I couldn't see a way out without destroying everything I cared about. As time went on, my boss started to become more possessive. It was like he thought he owned me or something. His arrogance was growing with each passing day, and I could tell he was getting more confident, almost smug, about the power he thought he had over me. He knew I was terrified of losing my marriage and was using that fear to manipulate me even further. He began making stupid demands that went way beyond the affair. He told me not to be intimate with my husband, to pull away from him emotionally and physically. He wanted me to be distant, to create a wedge between us. It was like he was trying to cut off every connection I had with my husband and make sure I was completely under his control. And unfortunately, it started to work. I found myself withdrawing more and more from my husband. I felt so guilty and ashamed of what I was doing that it became almost impossible to look him in the eye. I started avoiding him, making excuses to not be around, and when we were together, I was cold and distant. My husband noticed, of course. How could he not? He could tell something was wrong, that I was acting strange, confused, and worried all the time. But he didn't push too hard. He probably chalked it up to his busy schedule and the stress we'd been under since his promotion. Ironically, just as I was pulling away, things at work started to ease up for him. His workload was finally letting up, and he began to have more free time. I could see he was trying to make an effort to reconnect with me, to make up for the time we had lost. He started planning more date nights, wanting to spend more time together, and doing sweet things that he used to do when we were first married. But instead of being happy about it, I felt trapped. The more he tried to get closer, the more I pushed him away because of the mess I had gotten myself into. Every time he tried to plan something, I felt this deep pit of guilt and fear in my stomach because I knew I was hiding this massive secret from him. And all the while, my boss kept pushing me further away from my husband, demanding more of me, and deepening the rift in my marriage. It was a terrible, twisted situation. My boss's possessiveness and arrogance were ruining everything, and yet I felt powerless to stop it. I could see my marriage crumbling before my eyes, but I didn't know how to fix it without everything blowing up in my face. Things only continued to get worse. My boss's demands became more frequent and more unreasonable. It felt like every day he was finding new ways to control me, to make sure I stayed under his thumb. He would text me constantly, even when I was at home with my family, and he started insisting that I spend even more time with him outside of work. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was like he wanted to consume every aspect of my life. I was living in constant fear, always on edge, terrified that my husband would find out what was really going on. The guilt was eating me alive. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on anything, and I started to feel like I was losing myself. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare that I had created, and I didn't see a way out. My relationship with my husband continued to deteriorate. He was trying so hard to reconnect with me, but I was too scared and too ashamed to let him in. Every time he tried to get close, I would pull away, make an excuse, or shut down emotionally. I could see how hurt and confused he was, but I didn't know how to explain it without everything coming crashing down. At the same time, my boss's behavior was becoming more unpredictable and more aggressive. He started showing up at places where he knew I'd be, even outside of work, just to remind me that he was always watching. He would make comments about my husband, mocking him, and telling me how much better he was than my husband ever could be. It was like he was trying to completely isolate me from my life, to make sure that he was the only person I had left to rely on. The pressure was unbearable. I was constantly anxious, constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the moment when everything would blow up in my face. I started to withdraw even more from my friends and family because I didn't want anyone to see how much I was struggling. I knew that I needed to do something, but I felt completely powerless, like I was in too deep to ever get out. And all the while, my husband kept trying to reach out to me, to fix what was broken between us. He was planning more date nights, trying to create special moments for us to reconnect, but I couldn't bring myself to enjoy any of it. Every sweet gesture, every kind word just made me feel more guilty, more trapped. It was like I was living a double life. The more I tried to keep everything together, the more it all started to fall apart. I was barely holding on, and I knew that it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down around me. It got to a point where I started seriously considering just coming clean to my husband. I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, physically. I couldn't take the stress, the guilt, the constant fear of being found out. Every day felt like I was sinking deeper into quicksand, and I just wanted to be done with my boss and the whole mess I had gotten myself into. I was actually thinking about ending things with him, telling him to do his worst, and facing whatever consequences came my way. But in the end, I didn't even have to worry about blowing up my life. My boss did that for me. The breaking point came at a work party that my husband attended with me. I hadn't wanted to go at first. I knew how unpredictable my boss could be, and I was nervous about what might happen if we were all in the same room together. But my boss insisted I come, practically demanding it, and I thought maybe if I brought my husband as my +1, it would keep things in check. I figured my boss wouldn't try anything stupid if my husband was there, but I couldn't have been more wrong. From the moment we arrived, my boss was on a mission to humiliate my husband. He didn't even try to hide it. He was openly mocking him, undermining him in front of everyone. It was like he had some personal vendetta against him, and he didn't care who noticed. My husband tried to be polite at first, laughing off the comments or ignoring them, but it was obvious to everyone that my boss was crossing a line. The whole atmosphere of the party became tense and awkward, with people whispering and giving each other uncomfortable glances, but my boss just kept on going and going. He would make these snide remarks and then laugh it off as if it was all just a joke. He'd say things like, "Oh, I'm just kidding, don't be so serious," but it was clear that there was nothing funny about it. I wanted to intervene, to tell my boss to stop, but I was frozen. Part of me was terrified of what my boss might do if I stood up to him, and another part of me felt like I deserved this, like this was my punishment for everything I had done. But then my husband reached his breaking point. After one particularly nasty comment, my husband stood up. His face was flushed with anger. The room went silent as everyone realized something was about to go down. My boss smirked, I guess thinking he had the upper hand, but he didn't even see it coming. My husband, who had been trying so hard to keep his cool all night, just snapped. He swung his fist and landed a solid punch right in my boss's face. The whole room went dead silent, You could have heard a pin drop. My boss, who was completely caught off guard, stumbled back, holding his face where my husband had just punched him. For a second, it felt like everything froze. Everyone was just standing there, trying to process what had just happened. But my husband wasn't finished. He went after my boss again, and before anyone could react, he started hitting him repeatedly. My boss could barely defend himself as my husband let out all the anger he had been holding in for months. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. I was too shocked to do anything, but a part of me also felt like my boss deserved what was happening. I knew I was wrong in what I'd done, but my boss wasn't innocent either. He had manipulated me, blackmailed me, and now he was getting what he had coming. So, I didn't step in. I thought someone else might try and break up the fight or call security, but no one did. It seemed like everyone in the room had decided to let it play out. My boss had been such an arrogant jerk to everyone that no one felt sorry for him. Eventually, my husband stopped, standing over my boss, who was now lying on the floor, beaten and humiliated. My husband was breathing heavily, still full of rage. He looked at my boss one last time, as if daring him to get up. But my boss just lay there, too shocked and hurt to move. Then, my husband turned and looked at me. His eyes were full of so much anger and hurt, and I knew right then that he had figured everything out. Without saying a word, my husband walked out of the room. The silence that followed was unbearable. My boss was groaning on the floor, but no one went to help him. It was like everyone had decided he deserved what he got. I stood there for a moment, feeling everyone's eyes on me. I was so embarrassed and full of guilt, I couldn't stand it. I grabbed my bag and rushed out. I had to call an Uber as my husband took the car. I ordered an Uber, and the whole ride back, my mind was spinning, trying to figure out what I would say to my husband. When I finally got home, my husband was waiting. He looked surprisingly calm, but that just made me more nervous. I tried to speak, to say something, anything, but he cut me off. Told me he was going to bed, and then he just walked straight to the guest room. He didn't even want to sleep in the same bed as me, and that hurt more than anything. I realized then just how badly I had messed up. It's been 3 days since everything blew up, and my husband still hasn't said a single word to me. The silence between us is suffocating, and the tension in the house is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Despite his best efforts to keep things normal for the kids, they've started picking up on the fact that something's wrong. They're young, but they're not oblivious. I've noticed the way they look at us, confused and worried, and it breaks my heart because this is all my fault. I haven't been to work since the party. I didn't even bother to call in sick or officially quit. I just went completely radio silent. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I've already lost my job, but at this point, I don't even care. I haven't heard a word from my boss either, and while part of me is relieved, another part of me is just waiting for the other shoe to drop. But for now, the fact that he hasn't reached out feels like a small mercy. The worst part is that I haven't said a single word to my husband. I'm too ashamed and too scared to face him. I know I need to say something, to try to explain or apologize, but every time I try to think of how to start, the words just won't come. And the longer this silence drags on, the more terrified I become. This isn't like him at all. My husband has always been the type of person who deals with problems head on. He's never one to run away or avoid difficult conversations. It's one of the things I've always admired about him, especially since I'm the complete opposite. I tend to shy away from conflict, hoping it will just resolve itself, but he's always been direct and decisive. That's why his silence is so unsettling. It's not like him, and it makes me fear the worst. I keep running through all the possible scenarios in my head, wondering what he's thinking, what he's planning. Is he going to leave me? Is he just trying to figure out how to tell me it's over? Or is he so hurt that he just doesn't know how to talk to me right now? The not knowing is driving me insane. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare of my own making, and I have no idea how to get out of it. I don't know what to do, and I'm completely lost. That's why I'm turning to Reddit for advice. I've never been the type to post my personal problems online, but I'm at a point where I'm desperate. If anyone has been through something similar, or has any advice on how to handle this, I'd really appreciate it. I know I've made a huge mistake and I'm prepared to face the consequences, but I just don't know how to take the first step. Update. Hey Reddit, thanks for the feedback. I got flamed a lot, And honestly, I deserve it. I know what I did was wrong, and trust me, I think about it every day. I torture myself over it constantly. I wish I could turn back time, but I can't. And now I have to live with the consequences. So here's the update. After about a week of unbearable silence, my husband and I finally talked. I couldn't take it anymore. The not knowing, the awkwardness, the distance. I cornered him one evening and told him we needed to talk. I explained how horrible I felt, how guilty I was, and how this whole situation was eating me alive. I just wanted to get the conversation over with so that maybe, somehow, I could finally breathe again. We sat down and had a long, painful conversation. He admitted that he had known about the affair for a while. He had been waiting for me to come clean on my own, to tell him the truth. But I never did. He said he knew he was partially to blame for what happened. He took on too much at work and didn't do enough to keep our relationship strong. He acknowledged that the workload had put a strain on us, but he was clear that it didn't excuse what I did. He said for a long time, he didn't confront me because he didn't know how to. He didn't want to believe it was true, and he was hoping against hope that maybe he was wrong. Honestly, it was a long conversation, and I can't recount every detail here. But what stood out to me the most was when I asked him if he could ever forgive me. I told him I was willing to do anything to make it right, to share my location with him at all times, to become a stay-at-home parent so he could monitor me, whatever it took. But he refused. He said the trust was gone, and he didn't think he could ever forgive me. So that's where things stand now. It's over. I'm going to have to move out. I asked him to give me a week to figure things out because right now I feel completely distraught and drained. I half expected this outcome. I saw it coming, but that doesn't make it any easier to accept. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I wanted to give you all an update. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and I've finally moved out. I didn't want to update until I had things somewhat settled, so here I am now. Moving out was tough. My husband has been incredibly patient through all of this, never once pressuring me to leave before I was ready. It took me a while to get everything in order, finding a place to go, packing up my things, and just emotionally preparing myself for what was coming next. In the end, I had to move back in with my parents. Before moving out, I had to clear my desk at work. That was awkward, to say the least. I dreaded walking into that office, knowing that everyone probably knew what had happened. The first thing I did was meet with my employer to discuss everything. That's when I found out that my boss had been fired. Honestly, I wasn't surprised, but at the same time I was. The only reason my boss got hired in the first place was nepotism, so whatever he did must have really pissed off the higher-ups for them to actually let him go. I'm relieved, though. I didn't have to run into him, and I'll probably never see him again. After clearing out my desk, my parents came over the next day to help me pack up the rest of my things. Moving out of the home I shared with my husband and kids was the hardest part. The kids are confused, of course, but my husband is doing an amazing job of explaining things to them. He's been telling them that nothing has to change, and that they'll just have 2 homes now, which they seem to be excited about. It breaks my heart, though, to know that I've caused all of this. So now I'm back at my parents' house. They're not happy that I'm back, and I can tell they're really disappointed in me for cheating. Even my friends are disappointed. They've pretty much taken my husband's side in all of this. I couldn't lie to them. My husband insisted we tell them the truth, so that's what we did. As for my husband, he's already working on the divorce papers. He told me that I'll be served soon. I knew this was coming, but it doesn't make it any easier to face. I guess this is the end of our marriage, and it's all my fault. Thanks for all your advice, even the harsh words. I know I messed up, and now I'm living with the consequences. Update. Hey Reddit. To start off, this isn't an update post, so if you're here looking for one, I apologize because that's not what this is. I'm just here to rant because I just got out of an argument with my parents, and I'm so angry I can hardly see straight. I can't stand how horrible they're being right now. I get it. I messed up big time. I know I screwed everything up, and I have no one to blame but myself. But can they please stop reminding me of it every single day? I'm already carrying the weight of my mistakes, and I don't need them piling on every chance they get. Every time I try to talk to them about how I'm feeling or just try to get them to ease up a bit, they turn it around on me. It's like, well, you're the one who cheated, not us. Or, We can say whatever we want in our house, and if you don't like it, you can leave. They know I don't have anywhere else to go right now, so they're using that against me, and it's driving me crazy. If I could move out instantly, I would. I'm so tired of feeling like a prisoner in my own life, but I don't have the means to just pack up and leave. I need money, plain and simple. I want to move out, rent an apartment, maybe get a roommate to help with the bills, but I need money to make that happen. I've got some savings, but they're not nearly enough to get me out of here. And finding a job right now is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. The job market is crap, and I'm getting desperate. I'm trying to hold it together, but it's so hard when everything around me feels like it's falling apart. My parents are making it worse, and I just feel so trapped and helpless. I don't even have any friends to talk to now. I guess I can't blame them for siding with my husband. He's the one who got hurt after all. But it still stings. I've lost a lot of the support system I used to have, and it's like I'm going through this all alone. I don't have anyone to talk to who isn't judging me. As for my husband, I don't even know where to begin. He's handling everything with the kids so well, and I'm grateful for that, but it just makes me feel worse. I wish I could turn back time, undo everything, and start over, but I know that's not possible. I'm trying to keep it together, but some days it's hard to even get out of bed. I feel so lost. I don't expect sympathy or anything like that. I know I messed up. I know I did this to myself, and I know I have to deal with the consequences, but I'm human too. I can't keep living like this, being constantly reminded of my mistakes and feeling like I have no way out. I just needed to get this off my chest because I'm so frustrated and I don't know what else to do. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. Just a mini update because, well, I got served today. That's it. There's no going back now. No fixing what's been broken. It's all just over. Seeing those papers in my hands made everything so real, like the final nail in the coffin of the life I used to know. I deserve it. I know I do. I brought this on myself, and there's no one else to blame. But still, the reality of it all hits hard. It's one thing to know that your marriage is over, that you've ruined something so precious, but it's another thing entirely to see it in black and white, to hold those divorce papers and realize this is your new reality. I don't know what's going to happen next. My future feels like a big question mark, and it's scary. I keep asking myself if I even deserve a future after what I've done. I hurt the person I promised to love and be faithful to. I betrayed my husband, and now I'm facing the consequences. It's just hard to accept that it's really over. I keep thinking about everything that went wrong and knowing it's all my fault. I crossed lines I shouldn't have, and now I'm paying for it. Right now, I just feel lost. What do I do now? How do I start over when everything feels like it's falling apart? I've been trying to avoid facing this, but now that it's here, it's even tougher than I imagined. I know I have to move forward somehow, but I don't know where to start. It feels like everything is broken, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I just needed to get this off my chest. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. Sorry for the long silence, but I wanted to wait until I had something real to share instead of just rambling without any real updates. First off, I really appreciate all the advice you guys gave me about finding a job. A lot of you suggested looking into online work, and that's what I've been doing. The gigs I've picked up don't pay much. Honestly, it's barely enough to get by, but it's better than nothing. At least I have some kind of income, and that's better than sitting around with no money coming in at all. I'm trying to save up little by little, but I'm still on the hunt for a more stable, physical job that pays better. As for the divorce, it's been finalized. It was pretty uneventful, to be honest. There wasn't much to fight over. I didn't qualify for spousal support or any kind of financial settlement, and my husband got full custody of the kids. So I'll probably be paying child support once I get a steady job and start earning more. We didn't have any joint assets or anything like that. Everything we owned was either his from before the marriage or mine. So there wasn't much to divide. He keeps the house and most of our stuff. It was all very straightforward, but still, it's the end of my marriage, and that reality is hitting me hard. It all happened so fast, and now my life feels like it's in ruins. I've lost everything that mattered to me. My friends have distanced themselves. Even my own family isn't really supportive. I'm just tired. Tired of the guilt. Tired of feeling like I'm stuck in this mess with no way out. I know I brought this on myself, and I'm trying to deal with the consequences, but it's just exhausting. I guess this is my life now. I'm trying to move forward, but it's tough when it feels like everything and everyone is against you. I'm still looking for something, some kind of hope maybe, but right now, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Update.
Hey Reddit.
I wasn't planning on updating again, but I've been getting a surprising number of DMs asking for one. I wasn't sure what else there was to share, but here it goes. Honestly, not much has changed in my life. Things have been pretty uneventful. My ex-husband and I have settled into a routine when it comes to the kids. He lets me see them on weekends and whenever I'm free. At first it was awkward. There was a lot of tension and uncomfortable silence, but it's gotten better. We've managed to find a rhythm with co-parenting, and while it's still not easy, it's become more relaxed. I guess we both understand that this is our life now, and we have to make it work for the sake of the kids. We've got a long road ahead of us, co-parenting until they're grown, but at least we're managing. As for work, I still haven't found a steady job, but I've been getting more upscale gigs, which has been a big help. It's not exactly stable, but it's better than what I had before. It's allowing me to get by, and I'm grateful for that. My life feels like it's moving in slow motion, though. Nothing major happens, and I'm just trying to get through each day as it comes. Living with my parents is still tough. They're as difficult as ever. I try to keep my head down and not stir the pot, but it's hard when things are so strained. On a brighter note, my sister recently gave birth, so that's been something really positive. Honestly, I'm just trying to live one day at a time. Things are slow, but I guess that's better than more chaos.
My husband decides to destroy me and our son's life because my son supported my affair. Hey Reddit. I am at a point in my life where I feel isolated and lost, constantly questioning my marriage and the emotional disconnect I have with my husband. It is incredibly difficult for me to admit that my spouse, whom I once believed to be my soulmate, seems devoid of emotions which have led me to jeopardize my marriage and also my son's future. I am writing this post to share my story and hopefully receive some advice and support from all of you. To provide some context, my name is Aileen, 33F, married to Craig, 35M, for 7 years. We met in college and our love story was nothing short of magical. We were deeply compatible and shared countless moments of laughter, vulnerability, and intense emotional connection during our courtship. I got pregnant before we even talked about getting married. I convinced Craig that we would be wonderful parents and that we should go ahead with the pregnancy. We were gifted with a baby boy whom we named Andrew. We married when Andrew was 3 and we had saved enough money to move into a new house. However, as time went on and we settled into married life, I began to notice a growing emotional void between us. It felt as though a switch had been flipped, and suddenly Craig became emotionless. Whenever I expressed my love, happiness, or even concerns, his response was often blank or devoid of the expected range of emotions. In numerous instances, I probed him, asked him if anything was wrong or if I had done something to upset him, only to be met with nonchalant replies, brushed off concerns, or complete silence. The emotional disconnect had become suffocating, leaving me feeling unloved, unimportant, and ignored. I tried countless times to initiate conversations about our emotions, seeking common ground and attempting to understand his perspective, but it always ended in frustration and further distance between us. I tried suggesting couples therapy, hoping it would help bridge the gap, but he always brushed it off, claiming that everything was fine and that we could work through it ourselves. However, it was evident that our efforts had been futile, and my heart ached knowing that something was deeply wrong in our relationship. It is essential to clarify that Craig was not devoid of all emotions. He could express occasional glimpses of affection, like hugging or holding hands, but they seemed mechanical and devoid of real connection. It was all these small moments that often provided me with a flicker of hope, making me believe that there might be a way to reignite the emotional fire we once had. When I saw him occasionally playing with our baby, I would feel that there might be something that he has been holding back and not letting go, which was pushing him away from us. Despite all the efforts for more than 7 years, things were still platonic between us. Our sex life was non-existent, and even as a father, Craig was doing a terrible job to put across very plainly. He thought that providing us with all kinds of materialistic items was enough to keep us happy, and that was the role of a father in a relationship. I tried to explain to him that he needs to be more involved in Andrew's upbringing and trying to set a good example as a father whom he could look up to. All my efforts were in vain, as Craig showed little to no interest in Andrew's care and development. My son, Andrew, who is 10 years old, is someone I cherished a lot. When he was a toddler, I and Craig had decided that he would be going to one of the best Ivy League colleges, and we would make everything possible for him to get into one of them. We started interviewing a lot of tutors who could help him right from this age to prepare and make him ready for the exams to get into an Ivy League college. We finalized on one tutor who had an impeccable resume. He was an ex-Harvard student with an inclination towards teaching, so we decided to settle on him and made arrangements in the guest bedroom for him to be staying with us, so that he had enough time to observe Andrew and work on his shortcomings. After a week, the new tutor arrived and introduced himself as Joseph. He looked much younger than his pictures, and I could tell that he took very good care of his body. I let Andrew show him around the house and to his room, so that they get a little time to interact with each other before they start off with serious studies. Andrew was back after 10 minutes and looked very impressed and excited to see his new tutor. Joseph became a part of the family very soon. He would have meals with us and help me around the house when Andrew was at school. We would talk about Andrew and his progress, and then our conversations would drift to different topics. I felt really comfortable talking to him, and it did not feel like I was being forced to play the role of a happy wife. He made me feel comfortable in my own skin. Over time, it felt like this emotional void that triggered numerous self-doubts due to Craig's behavior kept disappearing. I no longer felt that I was the problem or that I must have unknowingly hurt Craig. I understood that Craig had very willingly distanced himself from me and Andrew, and no amount of persuasion could get him to behave like a normal person. As days went by, my conversations with Joseph became more about me and less about Andrew. We both got pretty close to each other, and I felt like all the love that I had been craving for all these years was right in front of me. I could see that Joseph also kept stealing glances at me when no one was around. It was very difficult to curb the attraction we had for each other, especially when there was just the two of us at home. We tried pretty hard to keep our distance from each other till Andrew was back from school. When I pictured us three spending time together, it looked like a perfect family, something that was difficult to imagine with Craig being so distant from us. I started making up this imaginary family in my head with me, Andrew, and Joseph in it. One day, I just gave in to my temptation and made my moves on Joseph. The way Joseph kissed me made me feel butterflies in my stomach, which had never happened before. It felt like true love, as I knew that I settled for Craig for the security of his wealth, and not actually because I loved him. Andrew was fast to notice that there was something going on between me and Joseph, and asked me if I liked Joseph. I was scared that he might tell Craig about us, but instead he told me that he really liked Joseph and was happy to see us together. I sighed in relief that Andrew had a better father figure to look up to and not just learn from Craig about how to treat his wife or kids. I realized that I had made a mistake by choosing Craig solely for his wealth, and it was clear that my heart belonged to Joseph. Andrew's acceptance of our relationship brought me a sense of relief and hope for a healthier future for our family. One day, Andrew was at school. Joseph and I were having fun with our usual banter. We were doing the dishes, throwing water on each other, and having a good time. Joseph pulled me closer and kissed me when we heard something fall. When we looked in the direction, we saw Craig standing near the kitchen door, staring at us angrily. I pushed Joseph away from me when Craig walked angrily towards us and slapped me. He asked Joseph to pack his bags and leave. I was terrified, as I had not seen Craig this angry ever. I could not even comprehend anything, as I was so scared of what he might do if I tried to explain myself. Joseph left quietly without a word, packed his bags, and disappeared. I did not even dare to come in front of Craig with the fear of what he might do. I locked myself in the bathroom and kept crying, unable to understand how I should approach this situation. I knew I had to gather my thoughts and find a way to address Craig's anger, but the fear and confusion overwhelmed me. As I sat in the bathroom, I desperately tried to come up with a plan to navigate this difficult situation without further aggravating Craig's anger. When it was time for Andrew to be back from school, Craig started pounding on the door and asked me to come out to talk. Very reluctantly, I opened the door as I knew that I could not hide in the bathroom forever. When I came out, he pulled me with his hand and took me downstairs to sit on the couch. Andrew came home with his results for the essay that he had aced. He kept screaming for me and Joseph to come and take a look at what he had achieved. As he walked in, he saw Craig sitting on the couch and was a little surprised. Craig told Andrew to come and take a good look at his mother, who has been doing all sorts of nonsense behind his back. He pulled me with my hair and asked me to face Andrew and tell him what I had been up to. He then forced Andrew to take a look at me and make sure he does not choose a person like me to be his wife in the future. I felt disgusted by the way Craig was humiliating me in front of Andrew, and the fact that he was just a 10-year-old was upsetting me. I could see Andrew being scared and also confused by the way Craig was reacting. Before I could say something, Andrew told Craig that he knows about me and Joseph and that he was happy to see his mother happy. Andrew said that Craig had never been available to spend time with me or him, and that was the reason why we had taken a liking to Joseph, who made us happy and look like a real family. I was taken aback by how much a small kid could observe and understand, which Craig unfortunately wasn't able to understand. This was enough to enrage Craig even more. Craig looked shocked to hear all of this from Andrew's mouth and slapped me pretty hard. He blamed me for corrupting his son's mind and making him look like a bad person. I told him that I had nothing to do with anything Andrew was saying, as I never showed him in the bad light. He told me to stop acting like a good person and start showing my true colors. I knew that there was no point in talking to Craig and trying to explain to him that there was nothing I told Andrew against him for him to talk this way. Craig got up from the couch and took Andrew and me by our arms and locked up in the basement. He told me that we would have to stay in the basement until we realized what mistake we had committed. I could understand that he was angry and upset with me for cheating on him, but why was he punishing Andrew? I told him to take Andrew out of the basement, and I was the only person worthy of punishment. He told me that since I had corrupted Andrew's mind, it was my responsibility that I put some sense into him, so that he understands that what his mother had done is wrong. He told me to teach Andrew that infidelity is a crime no matter the circumstances, and until he understands that, we both stay locked in the basement. I pleaded with him, explaining that punishing Andrew was unfair and that it was my mistake alone. However, he remained adamant, insisting that teaching Andrew the consequences of infidelity was crucial for his moral development. Reluctantly, I accepted my role in guiding Andrew towards understanding the gravity of the situation. For the next 3 days, we were in the basement and Craig gave us very little food and water, just enough to survive. I was fuming with anger with the way he was treating his only son, who had absolutely no fault in any of this. I was begging Craig to let Andrew out of the basement and make sure he has good nutrition and a good sleep. He kept denying my request and told me that this will make him suffer to make him realize what is right and what is wrong. After 3 days, he pulled Andrew out of the basement and kept me locked in. I don't know what he spoke to Andrew, but I was happy that he was not putting him back inside. However, my relief was short-lived, as I soon realized that Craig's treatment towards me was even worse than before. He subjected me to constant verbal abuse and neglect, leaving me desperate for any sign of kindness or escape. I am sharing my story with you, Reddit, in search of guidance, advice, or similar experiences from those who have faced this emotional disconnect in a marriage. How did you navigate this challenging situation? Are there any books, articles, or resources that you found helpful in understanding and resolving this issue? I believe that Craig, who had always been emotionally unavailable for me for a really long time, has no say in judging me for what I did. If he would have been more receptive to my emotional stress and helped me overcome it, maybe I would not have had to look elsewhere for the emotional support that I needed. I am ready to put in the work to save my relationship and also my son from his father, but I am unsure of the path to take. It scares me to imagine a future without the emotional connection that I crave, but it also terrifies me to spend my life longing for something that may never come. TLDR. Cheated on my emotionally husband, distant with son's approval. Husband punished me and my son. Seeking advice, support, and resources to navigate this challenging situation. Update. Thank you for taking the time to read my story and offering your valuable input. It had been a week since Craig learnt about the divorce and locked me in the basement. Thankfully, Andrew had not come back to the basement. Andrew would sneak up to the basement and talk to me, letting me know that he was on his way to school or was back from school. He kept reassuring me that he was fine and was being well taken care of. I was relieved that at least Craig was not being a cruel person and taking good care of Andrew. Over the weekend, Craig pulled me out of the basement and asked me to freshen up to discuss matters that were important. I was dreading this conversation as I knew that it was going to be gruesome. Andrew was away for a sleepover at one of his friends' place, and we had the entire day to ourselves to discuss our issues without any interruptions. Craig said that he had decided to cut me and Andrew off from the will and to donate every penny of his to an orphanage without leaving anything behind for us. I don't mind him not mentioning me in the will, but I am more concerned about Andrew, who has an entire life ahead of him to live. How could he possibly cut his one and only son off? I was the one who cheated, so why was he putting Andrew through all of this? It is very difficult to reason with Craig at this point, as he has been treating me like a slave since he found out about the affair. I only see rage and anger every time I look at him, which makes it difficult for me to address any concerns I have regarding his behavior towards Andrew. He has stopped caring about Andrew and does not even bother checking on his progress as a father. This had impacted Andrew's performance at school to a great extent, but he blames me for all of it. Craig's refusal to acknowledge his own role in Andrew's struggles is causing significant harm to their relationship. It's clear that Craig is displacing his anger onto me, rather than taking responsibility for his own actions as a father. This toxic dynamic is not only detrimental to Andrew's well-being, but it also prevents any productive communication about our concerns for his development. I decided that I could not let my mistakes ruin Andrew's life and future. I gathered enough courage to talk to Craig about it. After Andrew left for school, I asked Craig if we could talk about Andrew. I told him that our issues have been affecting Andrew both mentally and emotionally. It would be better if we kept him out of all this mess. He laughed and told me that I was the one who was very adamant on having a baby when we were both clearly not ready for it. We were not even married when we had Andrew. He kept insisting that I abort and that we could have a baby when we were married and would be actually ready. I was the one who was not ready to listen to any of it. He did everything he could as a father, even when he was not willingly ready for it. I was the one who made it look like he was not a good husband to me and went ahead and had an affair with his tutor. Even after all of this being my fault, he was disappointed in Andrew taking my side when clearly I was in the wrong. He said that he was teaching Andrew that life is not fair and that he had to live with the cards he has been dealt with. Unfortunately, his parents are not perfect people and he had to deal with it. He had no right in taking sides, but the moment he did, he was already involved in all of this. Craig said that there was nothing more that he could do for me or Andrew. He clearly told me that I would not be getting a divorce even if I begged him, as he believed that would be the easy way out for me. He told me that my punishment would be to see my son being miserable at school and not have anything left under his name, and keep cursing the moment when I had the thought of having an affair. I kept sobbing as those harsh words kept ringing in my ears. My affair had not only ruined my life, but had also jeopardized my son's future. I had no idea that Craig would turn so bitter towards his own son that he would not even realize that all of his actions were ruining his son. I decided that I could not just sit and sob and do nothing about it. I retaliated to Craig's accusations that I had made his life miserable, which was a big fat lie. He had always been happy, and I made sure that I gave him enough space when he expected me not to interfere. I told Craig that he had no right to ruin Andrew's life by disowning him, as he was his only child. Craig then told me that he wasn't really sure if Andrew was really his son. He would have believed it 2 weeks ago without any doubt. But after seeing my true colors, he feels that maybe I rushed having a baby and getting married, so that he does not find out who Andrew's real father is. I was dumbfounded by his mudslinging statements about me. I admit that I had cheated on him with Joseph, but there was never a day before Joseph appeared that I had ever even thought of cheating on Craig, or for that matter, even leaving him and getting a divorce, because though I was unhappy, I still wanted to make this marriage work. How could he be so blinded by his anger and jealousy that he passes such vile statements about me which he himself knew were not true? I told him that I would make sure that Andrew gets his share of his inheritance, and also I would file for custody and domestic violence if he would not be willing to give me a divorce. There was no way I was going to stay with him after all the slander he had thrown my way. I told him to get ready and hire a good lawyer since he would need one. He laughed in my face and told me that it wouldn't be necessary because even if we went to court, There was no way I was going to get any alimony or child support or custody. He said that he would make sure everybody we know gets to know about my affair, as he would make sure that Joseph testified that I was the one who seduced him into having an affair. Also, Craig said that he knew this is how I would react, so he had already transferred all of his property to a charitable organization that would be handling his entire wealth. I could see the cunningness in his eyes and face that kept taunting me and letting me know that I had messed up and there was no way out for me. I never knew how he became such a wrong person to live with. I now wonder if it was good that he was emotionless, as now he has become so volatile and reactive that it is even impossible to talk to him without him getting angry. He told me that as a person, he tried keeping things to himself. But now that I had pushed him to a corner, he had no other option but to retaliate in a way that I understand and just follow his orders. I had no idea that my affair would unleash a monster. I kept praying to God to show some mercy on Andrew and make Craig change his mind. The only hope I have is from God to create a miracle that could help me and Andrew come out of this slump. Little did I know that my actions would have such devastating consequences. As the days went by, the weight of guilt and regret grew heavier, leaving me desperate for divine intervention. I clung to the belief that only a miracle could bring redemption and provide a way out of this dark chapter in our lives. For anyone reading this, I would like to say, not to gamble with what you have. Try to grin and bear it, at least for the sake of your kids. Not every story ends in a fairy tale. Life is unfair and will always be. Try to make good choices and do not fall into temptation like I did and ruin everything you have. Thank you for reading and being a constant support for me. I appreciate all of your concerns for both me and my son. Please pray for us.